Good day. We've got a client who is interested in knowing what happens to folder redirection when they turn it off, specifically when they turn off the app data redirection, which they've had on for a few years and they've decided it's just too much of a pain. They want to get rid of that. So we've set up a little lab here and we're going to find out. We're pretty sure, but there's nothing quite like going through it from scratch. So that's what we're going to do. Right in front of you is a Windows 10 machine just freshly installed. And we also have a Windows Server 2022 domain controller. So the first thing we're going to do is set up folder redirection, and then we're going to test it, and then we're going to turn the policy off and see what happens to the files. We want to make sure we don't break things. All right, so the very first thing we need to do is to create a share for the folder redirections. So let's do that. Now, I'm on a domain controller. You would never do this in real life. This is purely for lab purposes. You would do this on a file server or anything other than a domain controller, but I'm going to. Now you can create the share any way you want, but I like to do it the old way. However, most people seem to like to use Server Manager, so we'll go with the Server Manager way to show you how to do it. So just wait for it to finish off. And under File and Storage Services, you can click on Shares, and then click Tasks and New Share. We want to do an SMB quick share. And where do you want to put it? Well, just go into Type Custom Path and click Browse. I'm going to select the C drive and I'm going to select New Folder and I'm going to call this Readers. You call it whatever you want. It doesn't make any difference. And then just double click on it and select Folder. Then click Next. Now, we need to keep this path for the future. So what we need to do is copy that. Before we do that, you want to make this a hidden share. So put a $ at the end and then copy that path. So just highlight it. I'm going to press Control-C. You can right click and copy, whatever works for you. Click Next. Enable access-based enumeration. All this is saying is if you don't have access to it, you can't see it. Great for security because it's very difficult to hack what you can't even see. Let's click Next. These permissions we can make work, but it's not least permissions, and that's what we should be using. So let's click Customize Permissions, and we need to disable the inheritance, and then convert the inherited to explicit. There we go. So now these permissions are things we can edit. In particular, we need to get rid of this generic user's account. So click on that and select Remove. And there should be just 3 left here. Authenticated System and Administrators. Wait a minute, that's not right. Authenticated user shouldn't be there. I'm not sure why it is. I was playing around a little bit before I did this, so maybe that was me. Sorry. Anyway, what we need to do is go into here and select creator owner. So you probably won't have to do this, but you should have creator owner in there. So I'm just going to add it. There it is. And creator owner should be, I believe it's full control. So let's click OK. Yeah, there we go. Now, let's get back to doing the proper security settings, which is to go into Add here. And we need to say which group of users has permissions. So the Select Security Principal. Now, we don't have a group for this already, so we have to go back to our Active Directory users and computers and create a security group. Pretty straightforward. Just right-click and select New Group. It's a security group. You can make it a global or universal, whatever you'd like. And I'm going to call this Folder Redirect Staff. You can call it whatever you want. It doesn't make any difference at all. Click OK. Find that group, which in my case is right there. And add all of your staff in that you want. In my case, it is just test user. 3 is the only one I'm going to do this with. Go. I could add them in specifically, by the way, but groups are always better. So there we go. So let's go back to our permissions and we'll add in that group. So let's go to the field and type in folder, see what it comes up with. There we go. Folder redirect staff. And we need to change it to this folder only. And then we need to actually get in and do some special customizations here. So click Show Advanced, and the least permissions are as follows. There, that's what it should look like. List, read attributes, read extended, create folders, and read permissions. You could have more, but this is the least. Click OK. And this is what it should look like. So you've got some special permissions for the staff, and you've got admins can at least get into the folder, but they won't be able to actually get into the files. The system can get in because, of course, it's got to do backups and things, and creator owner, that goes without saying. Now just click Next, and Create, and Close. Okay, so now we need to get into group policy. You can get into this a bunch of different ways. I still go the old way. And what you need to do is, well, I'll just make it a little wider so you can get into it. Then select the OU, the organizational unit that you are wanting this to apply to. We could apply it to the root because this is a lab, but I actually have things in this OU I created called folder readers. You could put it to wherever your heart desires, whatever group you want this to apply to. Just right click and create a GPO and link it here. Right, and we'll call this again Folder Redirect. There we go. Then just right click on it and edit. And this is in the user configuration. So we go to user settings and then down into policies, into Windows settings. And yeah, there it is, folder redirection. Now, which ones do you want to redirect? Well, I'm going to redirect. Well, I'll start with what most people are actually going to do, which is the desktop and documents. That's the most common. So right-click on desktop, select properties, and no, we do want it reconfigured. We want to redirect everyone's folder to the same location. Click on that. Now the default here is correct. Create a folder for each user in the root path, and you'll recall we copied that path earlier. There it is. If you can't remember it, that's where it would be. And you can see in the example here, if the user's name was Claire, she would be redirected to that path, Claire, in the desktop folder. Now, here is the interesting part that I'm running for my client. Click on Settings, and on Settings, there is this option, which is redirect the folder back to the user profile location when the policy is removed. This is the policy that I'm specifically trying to test. You may not be. You're probably just trying to set up folder redirection. But I still think that's a great idea to put on there. So if this policy gets removed, then everything goes back to a normal setup and the files get moved back to the user's local machine. Click OK. Of course, you do not need to click Apply. Lots of people still do, but you don't need to. Just click OK. Now I will go into the documents as well, and we'll just do the same thing. We'll do this very quickly so that you don't get old watching. Paste, settings, boom, there we go. In my case, I'm going to do something that's probably a bit silly, as I said, which is actually the point of this lab, which is to move the app data as well. That's not something that most people want to do, although there are good reasons to do it, but it does cause, well, first of all, it causes a lot of additional complexity. Secondly, it makes things slow because a lot of programs use that app data folder for their settings and configuration, as well as the registry. So it's better to have it local for most people. Okay, so we'll click OK on that. And it says, hey, that's going to be a problem if you're running old stuff. Yeah, I don't care. We're not running 2003. All right, so that's our GPO, and we can close this now. Now let's go back to our client PC, which is this one here. And look, we can just reboot this thing. But for the sake of argument, I'm going to show you what happens if you run a GP update. So let's go to Windows PowerShell, Admin, Command Line, or whatever tool you're using. Windows Terminal, whatever. And in my case, this is an admin. Like I said, you probably won't do this at all. You'll probably just reboot and move on. I just want to show you something. So let's go here to GP update /force. And that'll say, hey, go to the domain controller and pull down whatever's current. And because I've done this as an admin, it will pull it down for the users and for the machine. And it says, hey, there's a folder redirection thing. We can't do that until you reboot. Sure, go for it. So you log off. Okay, so I'm going to sign back in as my lowly test user. I'm taking a bit longer than usual, probably because it's building the folders on the server, on the domain controller. in this case, a domain controller. As we've said, that's a terrible idea to do generally. So let's go into computer, we'll go this PC. Yeah, everything looks fine there, right, as you'd expect. But take a look, you see desktop and documents have this little green icon. I'll click on that, and you can see it's got a nice online status. So let's go here and create a new folder. We'll call this test 1. And let's go into here and we'll create a new text document called test1 doc, and it's a .zip. By the way, I'm going to turn on file name extensions as well as hidden items because both of them drive me nuts when they're not on. And just to make sure that this isn't corrupt, I'm going to put this is a test 7:18 p.m. There we go, and close it. File Explorer, right click on the file and select properties, and you can see, yeah, it did redirect it. Now, just because we're here, let's go off to our domain controller and take a look at the redirection folder, which is C readers. There it is. Test user 3 got created. And you think, great, we can get into this. Well, we set it so you can't. So let's go into documents. We've been denied permission, right? And that's a good thing, right? Keeps your client data safe. But you notice app data is here as well, and we can't get into that either. Just like you shouldn't be able to. All right, so let's go. Now, just for fun, I'm going to go back to the client PC. So folder redirection's on. We've proven it works. I'm going to go to this PC. So let's go into users and test user 3. And look what isn't here. Desktop and documents. Why is that? Well, because we redirected them. So if you really needed to get into them, other than using these redirections over here, these shortcuts over here, how would you get to them? Well, you go to the server, which was test DC1 in my case, and then the folder, I believe, was readers. Is that correct? And it was hidden, so I have to put the $sign at the end. Yes, there it is. If there were a dozen other people that had folders here, this test user wouldn't see them. Why not? Because we turned on, let's just flip over and show you, because we turned on access-based enumeration. So let's just prove that point. Let's go to C, readers. I'll create a new folder here. Doesn't make a difference what I call it. Let's go back to the client machine and I'll refresh this. Yeah, they don't see it. And that's awesome. Once again, I'll just show you that because a lot of people aren't familiar with this and it's really important to have. Well, I think it's really important to have. So right click on your share, go to properties, and in settings, enable access-based enumeration. Just a great feature. Okay, get out of that. That's a tangent, but it's important, I think, for security. Now let's drill into this. Test user 3, and let's go into app data and roaming, and there's some stuff in here. Now I'm going to double click on that, and I'm going to create a folder in here because I want to see if this all gets shifted back happily when we turn this policy off. Because I genuinely don't know. I think it will, but I just don't know. So I'll call this test folder 7:29 p.m. and I will create a text file. I'll call this test. Yeah, that's enough. Test text, that's fine. And I'll say this is a test from 7:29 p.m. Right, so there's some actual data in there, something that could get corrupted or damaged. There we go, so that's gone. So if you've got Microsoft Teams or actually almost any application that's storing data in that app data folder and you get rid of this policy because you've decided to turn it off, you want to make sure that it's not going to blow up. So let's go find out. I'm going to close this because there's just no point leaving it open. Then let's go back to the domain controller. There we go. Now, just a note, if all you wanted to learn from this was how to use folder redirection, congratulations, you're done. But I want to turn it back off and see if things blow up. I don't think they will, but they might. Let's find out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take that user out of the Active Directory group that has folder redirection applied to it. So I'll go to Active Directory, users and computers, and let's go into folder readers. There we are. And I'm going to drag this guy out and just put him into normal users. And so he's no longer part of this folder redirection group, which means this should no longer apply to him. This OU, this GPO should not apply. So let's minimize that, go back to the test PC, and let's do a refresh again. You don't have to know this. In your case, you just reboot to find out. But I'm going to go through this because I want to show you the error. And we'll go to GP update /force. And I'm expecting it will come up with the same thing saying, hey, we can't make this change until you log off. There we go, great. So I'll say yes to that. And it logged us out. So let's go log back in. Come on, test user 3. Crank that bad boy. My guess is it's reconfiguring itself and moving everything back. And it should be transparent. So let's go to File Explorer. And look, the little icons are gone. Recent files are here. That's a good thing. And you can see where they were stored. But that should no longer be the case. Let's go drill into we'll just go right into Documents first. Test is there, and you can see it's local. Let's just right-click on this and select Properties. Yeah, it's back and it's local. Okay, now the one I'm actually interested in is the roaming profile. So let's go to C, Users. This is Test 3, App Data, Roaming. There it is. And let's see if the file is still there. It is. Okay, now I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to go back. I'm going to reapply the GPO to this machine, but I'm then going to remove just the app data redirection. Let's see how that works. Okay, so just keep watching. And this should be moving up both that new folder that I just created, plus the old stuff that was there before, the old things that were in my documents and in the roaming profile. So let's go on to this and take a look at the properties. And you can see, yep, it's been redirected. So that's great. So now what I want to do, well, let's just make sure that everything's going the way we expect. So I will go to Documents. There's my test document. I'll create a new test document. Test 2. I'll just put the timer 7:37 p.m. Close. Yep. And I'll also go off to test user. We'll go to app data, roaming, and we'll create another folder here. Test 7:37 p.m. And again, I'll create a new text document. And I'll call this 737. How's that? I don't care about the bracket. And I'll put 737 in here. Bunch of garbage. Next. Okay, there we go. So we have some real world data that we can use to validate that turning off just the application data folder redirection doesn't blow everything up. I'm really hopeful, but I just don't know for sure. Okay, so back to the domain controller. Now, what I need to do here is go to the GPO, just right click on it, select edit. Let's go find it. Users, policies, Windows, folder redirection. Oh, what a memory. Let's go into that, select properties, and I'm going to say not configured. We're just going to turn it off. Click OK. All right, now let's go back to the PC, run the old GP update. I said I'm very hopeful, but I just don't know for sure. So let's get out of here, go back in. By the way, yes, this is all being done in an Azure cloud using just test accounts, all being done for free. Okay, well, there's my 735 folder. That looks happy. Let's go take a look at what really counts here, the PC, and see what is in users, test user, app data, roaming. I don't see that folder we created, and that, and the 737, I believe it was time, text document. That is bad. Okay, I'm going to reboot this, which really just gives it more time to sync up. Something's not right here, I think. So let's do restart. We want to restart it. Be right back. All right, let's see if it's back. I'm not very hopeful about this. It's very disappointing. Let's just take a look and see what happened here. Again, I'm not hopeful. So let's go to C, users, test user 3, app data, roaming. No, it's not there. Oh, that's crushing. Another way to go would be to manually copy it back when you make that change. You could add a script, a login script. So for instance, let's go to the path here. You could add a login script to copy all of this back to the local machine. Okay, so let's install Teams. All right, so to be clear, because it does get confusing, right now I've turned folder redirection for app data back on, and I have the redirect folder back to local user profile location when policies removed turned on. Okay, so when I go into PC, I should see, yep, that's been redirected. And I should see roaming. And it is, and I've got my little green sync icon. Something to note is down at the bottom right, you'll see the sync icon as well. And that allows for offline files because, of course, you need these to work when people are offline. And that just takes us back through to the same place we were. So I cleared out the files that I was playing with earlier, just so that this is nice and clean. And what I'm going to do now is install our friend, Mr. Teams. There, now I've got Teams. So let's go take a look and see where the configuration files actually went. App data, roaming, there we go. So it did add a Teams folder. That's great. Okay, so we've got Teams. Now let's go back to the domain controller and remove that policy. When I say remove, I'm going to change it to not configured. Click OK. Let's go back to the PC and run a GP update. There we go. Yes, we will log off and then sign right back in. All right, let's take a look at what happened to our app data folder on the network. It'll still be there, I'm sure. There's still lots in there. Okay, let's go take a look and see what's actually on the local machine. So it hasn't moved back all of the settings. Teams is still running, but I think it's still running from the LAN. I think it's still using that path. Let's try to delete. Yeah, there's no more sync on here. I should, in theory, be able to just right-click on this and delete it. I am the owner of it. I am test user 3. I'm the only person that has access to that. It's letting me delete it. I expect it will chip. There we go. So yes. Okay, we'll skip these and see what's left. Just Teams. Look at that. That's obnoxious. So Teams data just doesn't get moved back. Just that simple. Well, that's disappointing. Let's sign out, sign back in, and just see if we blew up anything else in Windows by deleting all of those files. I suspect not, because it let us delete them. They weren't in use, but you never know. System looks fine. I see a sync warning down here. Let's take a look at the sync here. I don't see any warnings there. Let's click sync. Sync complete. That looks happy. No error message there anymore. That's fine. So let's go look at our test user. And my guess is all the team stuff is, yeah, no, this is not good. This is really not good. It seems to be ignoring that policy to move things back. I suppose it now says not configured, so it just ignores it. So the only way to get everything to move back from the server to your machine is to go to your DC, as we showed earlier, and take the user out of that policy. So in this case, you can just take the user, move them into a different group, and then this policy won't get applied, and then things do move back. But that is not a workable solution for real companies, because you would have all of the data that's on the server move back to the local PC, and companies don't want that. They just want to get rid of that app data. Redirection. The amount of bandwidth that would be required to pull all of those files through for all of your users would be massive. And then you'd have to set up a fresh policy that pushes everything back to the server through folder redirection, except app data. Yeah, so that's a crisis. This just doesn't work. That's very disappointing. So there you have it. It doesn't move that roaming data back if you disable just the app data. That is very, very disappointing. And I will be following up with Microsoft on that. Well, look, if you have any questions or concerns, please put them in the comments section below. If you like this video, please click like. It really helps with the Google algorithms. And subscribe is also huge. And you can always get a hold of us at www.urtech.ca. That's www.urtech.ca. Thanks and have a great day. Bye-bye.